of our people here in this group itself who are doing a pretty good job of speaking. So we can have a facilitated roundtable kind of a discussion. So instead of getting a speaker every week, I think we can get a speaker once a month, and then look at a masterclass once in a quarter or something, which would be a kind of a in-depth session. But I think every week we can have somebody or the other from this group picking up a topic, or it could be a topic out of interest. It could be a topic out of experience. It could even be a book review, which is relevant to human resources. That's one idea I got. We can facilitate a roundtable conversation. So it goes around and everybody who's present here gets a chance to.
I will within a couple of minutes, I will just be offline, right?
Yep. Yes, perfect. Thanks. So with all this, and when I was asked if I can bring somebody here as a speaker, the first name that I sent was that of Colin. And Colin and I really have not interacted too much, although like it was with Vikas, we keep following each other on LinkedIn especially. But I have this habit of comparing a lot of people in the HR fraternity with eminent personalities. So for me, Colin is the Barack Obama of the HR fraternity. He himself doesn't know that, but that's what I refer to him as. He's the Barack Obama for a reason. I have not seen somebody who has such an excellent balance of head and heart like he does. That's one way. That's the impression I have about Barack Obama. I have not seen anybody in HR fraternity who is so perfect when it comes to being firm, and at the same time is an epitome of empathy. Every conversation I've had with him has been like that, though there are very few. That's my impression about Barack Obama. I've heard about Colin.
You're stuck, Harini.
Another common source who has worked somewhere remotely under him in one of the organizations, I don't remember which. Is a perfect gentleman, and you're going to love sharing the stage with him. So with all these reasons, for me, Colin is the Barack Obama of HR. So that's what we're going to call him. And Haley, I think you should mention this when you're writing your social media post about this. Okay. Right. Okay. So what is common between me and Colin?
Harini, you are getting lost. There's a disconnection.
What's common between me and Colin, as I saw, and as you must have, any of you must have done something. Between both of us is we started our career in HR with remuneration and benefits, and that's a proud moment for me to say that's something that I share common with him. Rest of it is, he's had an amazing experience in all the big brands, Pfizer, Unilever, WNS, and then about more than a decade and a half with the Tata's group. Somebody asked me yesterday, is he still with the Tata's group? And my answer was, why not? Right? He kind of fits there perfectly. And the reason we have him here is to talk about what the Tata's group is really torchbearers for on caring for employees and doing things right. So the topic is also this, that should we do things for the sake of doing, or do we have to do them right in a fair manner? So we are going to have this like a conversation. There have been a few pointers where we thought we should take this conversation through, but at the same time, there might be a couple of instances where I will slightly track and throw small surprises, but I think Colin can handle that. So
sure.
Colin, with that introduction, what I would actually request you to do is, I will, as I take you through the questions, I will request you to wear an HR hat and a CEO hat. I might ask you to do that at random, because I really, at the end of it, I want to bust a very common myth that HR is a siloed vertical, and HR cannot really be on the driver's seat along with the CEO. So I want to bust that myth, because here we are going to talk about, we're going to focus a lot about empathy. We're going to focus a lot about doing things right. So isn't that the core value for an HR professional? And therefore, I want to bust that myth. So I'll keep requesting you to wear these hats alternatively. So let me begin with a very basic question, talking about doing things justly in the right manner. What does the word welfare mean to you? Okay. In an employee context, in a people context, so wear the HR hat and just tell us what does the word welfare mean to you?
Yeah. So thanks, Harini. Thanks, Aditi, Dr. Harish, and I think phenomenal work happening at the HR Milestone Forum. I understand this is the 31st session, and so much of progress, and I'm sure there is much more progress that's going to happen. I just want to put a small disclaimer saying, at the very start, saying that these views are my own, and of course doesn't represent the organization I'm associated with. And with that, I would like to, express my views throughout the session. Yeah. So Harini, you rightly said, and thank you for this beautiful introduction, because, I couldn't be compared to someone who I truly idol, and trust me, I've got a number of books of Barack Obama and a number of series, and I completely adore the way he speaks and the way he delivers every single conversation. With so much of class and with so much of finesse. So this is phenomenal, and I'm truly honored to be really compared in that
You're almost there.
So you mentioned also, Harini, that I would have to wear two different hats, and I'm happy to wear those hats, both the HR hat and the CEO's hat. And I think in my mind, it's very important to have hats that are important for people, and hats that are important for business. Yeah. And so you mentioned, what does welfare mean to me with an HR hat on that? And let me tell you something very simply. I've been a comp and ben professional for a very large part of my career. And I would define it very simply. Anything that I would give an employee, which is over and above promised compensation, is really welfare. So very simple words, but that's what it means to me. What do I would really define? If I were to say that X is X person CTC, and anything that I give over and above, that's really what I would define as welfare, really. Yeah. If you were to ask me, what does it mean to me? Well, it means to me several things. Let me try and distill it in a few words. Welfare is something, to my mind, that must be owned by the people. Yeah. Rather than be categorized as an employee initiative or as an initiative by HR. And if something like this is not owned by the people, you will find that the welfare initiative or the success of the welfare initiative isn't taking off as expected. So I think ownership from the employee perspective is one very, very important aspect to this. The second, it goes beyond compliance obligations, which makes it a very strong business case for companies to promote and invest. Okay. So many successful companies and progressive organizations across the world have made it a significant part of the employment branding strategy. So they've said that, these are the various things that we do, and this is the whole host of stuff that we do and that we give our employees, and the experience that they get is phenomenal. So that really talks about how it can attract and retain talent, really. And the third thing that I think that comes to my mind is, I think it has a significant positive impact on productivity, on motivation, on engagement, and on loyalty. Yeah. And I think these four words are so very powerful for what any employer value proposition is. So, we're talking about engagement, we're talking about advocacy, we're talking about loyalty. These are very, very key aspects to help people continue to stay with you. Yeah. Now, so that's on a broad brush, really what, in my mind, I would define welfare to each of you. When I'm defining, when I'm putting together a welfare measure, what is very important to be considered? What are some of the key factors? If I'm trying to say that, okay, we're starting up a new business, let's look at, or let's examine some of these welfare measures that will be useful for people. Yeah. So what really do we need to? We need to look, again, consider three aspects. One is you need to start with the objective in mind. What is the objective of doing what you want to do? Yeah. There needs to be, of course, a strong alignment with the objective to the leadership. There needs to be resources, yeah, that will ensure that we are able to measure the effectiveness of the objective. So that is very key. The second one is to take it beyond the concept. So let's say, for example, you define, X is going to be an objective that you want to do, and then you now have to ensure that you're able to drive it beyond the concept to actually implement. And as you and me would probably agree, the success of any initiative is actually its implementation. And, the design is really important, but the implementation is the key. Yeah. And of course, the third one, as I mentioned earlier, is it needs to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. Yeah. So it must be owned by the people completely. So any success of any welfare program must be owned by the people. Yeah. Now, coming to the other aspect, and some of these points I really articulated before, why do we really need to have an engaged welfare program? There are various aspects that actually ensure that we are able to have a strong, robust welfare program. Number one, I think it's very important to ensure that that our welfare program that we bring in or we introduce is able to enhance engagement and enhance productivity. Okay, because that is what we're really trying to drive. We're not really doing that for the sake of having fun and games with people. The second one is, of course, to improve loyalty and morale of the people. Yeah, absolutely. And the third, is to actually enhance or reduce the attrition that's there in the organizations. So what do we get? We get enhanced goodwill, we get advocacy, we get better employee relations. So if I were to put my HR hat, I think there are a long list of things that we just spoke about. And, if I were to just quickly summarize it in 3 strong words, a welfare program would need to drive, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Yeah, wow. So that's my view from an yeah. So that's a view from an HR hat.
This is amazing for another reason. One is I am floored by the points that you put here, and when you actually said that welfare is beyond my favorite jargons, beyond drawing rangolis and blowing balloons. That's because employee engagement is very, very often, almost at all times, mistaken with the fun activities that happen at the workplace. And I think that's a very, very important myth which I never hesitate to make people bust. So that was a wonderful thing. What really stood out to me once again, and again you're amazing me here, is that many people once told me that I'm known to be an introvert. Okay? I'm known to be an introvert. I'm not a very social person, and as most people know, I've been around for 22 plus years, pretty much same as Colin. But I'm seen in the network only for the last year and a half. And of course now I'm very much seen. But I've been in the shadows and just focusing on work. And people told me that you're a very atypical HR person. Probably compensation and benefits is the one that suits you, because that's a field or sub-function of HR where you work only with numbers and you don't work with people. And I used to wonder, how can anyone say that if you're in comp and ben you don't work with people? Obviously you do, because comp and ben is one function where you're laying the foundation on one of the key aspects of career and career progression. So I used to challenge that, and I was wondering whether I have a partner in crime. And now when you're speaking the same kind of language, the same kind of thoughts, you're talking so much about empathy, you're talking about where welfare goes beyond compliance, and you've unconsciously bust another myth that somebody who's ingrained in comp and ben can only work on compliance. So thanks a lot for that. So that was an amazing perspective of what welfare means wearing an HR hat. And now I want you to wear the CEO's hat or a business leader's hat. And for a business leader, what does welfare mean? The same question, but completely different perspective.
Yeah. So, yeah, from a CEO, I think, a lot has to be seen in terms of productivity. A lot's going to be seen on return of investment or value of investment. These are things that a CEO really looks at. So anything that you propose to the CEO, they want to say, okay, I'm ready to invest this money. And so what do I get out of it, And as obviously every business head or every CEO would really look for productivity. I'm sure that is going to be key. So there is a lot of debate today, and we all know about it. On basically how do we evaluate effectiveness of any take, and the CEOs clearly look at return on investment. So if I say that hey, this is what I want to consider as an initiative towards welfare, the CEO would be very keen to understand that yeah, this is good, but however, so what do I get out of it? What do I get out of it in the short term? What do I get out of it from a longer term? And I think when it's very important from an HR person that when you are making a proposition to a CEO, you wear his hat always, because if you're able to do that, you could probably preempt a number of questions that the CEO would bring to you. Yeah. And so things like, return on investment, if you're able to provide a short-term view, a longer-term view, a medium-term view, I think that will make the CEO's buy-in will come much, much quicker. So some of the key things to keep in mind is ROI, of course, value of investment, very, very important. Peter Drucker once said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Yeah. So, these are things that I think it's so very important, And there are today variety of ways to do it. It's not that you cannot measure the impact. So if there are various ways, on doing a simple basic before and after comparison and see that there are studies that have been done that actually talk about implication of variety of employee engagement initiatives and how that's enhanced the bottom line and top line of the company. So these are various things that really could be really considered, And of course, if there are good welfare measures, these are things that can drive, achievement from a business outcome. Of course, if there are negative, it could have a dip in productivity. There could be low quality of output. There could be absenteeism. There could be attrition, low morale, and so on and so forth, and even poor employer branding. So there is a flip side to everything. And if you're able to bring that alive to a CEO to help him understand that, this is the pros and these are the cons, I think any CEO will buy it out. And any CEO will be happy to put his money in where he sees that it is not an expense, but it is an investment. And I think the key to any HR is when you're wearing a CEO's hat, how do you consider any of your employee welfare or initiative programs as an investment rather than an expense? Yeah. And so this is what I would also like to just mention, what are some of the parameters you might want to consider, while selecting any benefit. And, this is again, keeping the CEO's hat in mind. One would be, for example, set the parameters of success. So what would success look like? So if I do X initiative, today, and over a period of 1 year, what is the success that would transpire over that? The second one is to ensure that, we have buy-in from various stakeholders, So if, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have the buy-in, your initiative or your welfare measure would not be a success. So basically, educate and persuade is one aspect that I would talk about. The third one is also on effective implementation. Yeah. So while you implement it, how do you present some quick wins? You've done something good and it's made an impact. Present those wins so that people are able to see, wow, there's traction happening. Great. So then people are trying to say that, okay, this guy came and proposed this, but I can see that it's making a road, and it's going forward, and there are positivities around it. So these are certain things that I would like to say that, from a CEO's perspective, if you're able to put that across, I think it makes a very, very strong proposal. And I think no CEO today would not want to consider a proposal that promises a long run of goodness for the employees.
Absolutely. So interesting. So when you wore your HR hat, your focus was on productivity and engagement and all of that. When you wore the CEO's hat, you spoke a lot about morale. So there you go, busting the myths that HR leaders can definitely co-pilot the business along with the CEOs. So that was something that I really wanted to bring about, and thank you so much for getting it. And Suzanne here is saying that HR needs to put forth a business case for this too, for buy-in, and it's a great advice. So she gives you a thumbs up, Colin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Thank
cool.
you.
And I completely agree with you on this as well, because that has been my experience too. When you're able to clearly demonstrate with the quick wins, and when you're able to back up every proposal as an HR head, if you're able to back up every proposal with a lot of thorough research as to what the outcome is likely to be for an initiative that you want to drive, and you're able to show some very easy milestones that are achievable, and you start demonstrating, then I think it's not difficult to get 100% approval for any proposal that we put forth. In fact, I've been managing through that kind of a record. By default, design or default, I've stepped into an industry when it was going through a downturn. So it has happened very well, and I'm so glad that you're able to say the same thing from my experience too. So that is fantastic. So moving on
Sure.
from welfare, I just want to cross over some gray areas on words that are similar sounding. So welfare is often confused or used interchangeably with caring. Now, if you go by the semantics of the English language, then welfare and caring can be two very, very different terms. But when they are used in the context of people that we work with, sometimes they are used interchangeably, and that may not be the right thing, or maybe the right thing, not very sure. So what is your perspective when you talk about caring? So now you wear the CEO's hat for the first time, because caring from a CEO perspective is a little difficult for us to predict what you will say. So wear a CEO's hat and tell us what caring really means for you.
Yeah. So caring, in my mind, from a CEO's perspective, would look at three types of benefits. One is benefits from work, which is lifestyle related. Okay. Benefits from health, which is insurance related. Benefits from financial security, which is retirement related. So these are broadly in a bucket, the way a CEO would really look at how does the benefits look on a different context. But however, if I were to just look at aspects on caring, as you rightly mentioned, I think one of the most important aspects that I would see is going above and beyond to personally help your employees. And the reason why I say this is not necessarily an HR hat, it is a CEO's hat, because if the CEO is able to indicate areas of this nature, that will distill the culture in the company. Yeah. So one of the important things is, if the CEO is able to go above and beyond to really personally help employees, that will make a huge lasting impact for people with the company. The loyalty that you get will be phenomenal. Yeah. And I've seen this, it's not only, I would say, a CEO, but I will see this very strongly even among managers. When you see the way managers manage teams, this is one aspect that makes teams really work together and be together. Yeah. The other part of it is, create opportunities of new experiences, so that, let's say you have a new business that's coming up, and you see a high potential person in your team that can really take up an assignment of that nature. Why don't you, give that person, throw his hat in the ring, and, so to say, give that person an opportunity to take up a new business, that actually talks about two aspects. It talks about focusing on developing people. It talks about focusing on giving people opportunity, and it talks about also caring about their future. Yeah. So these are few things that really come to my mind with the CEO's hat, really.
So there was a question here from Rajaram, and I think you've kind of touched upon that, but I thought it makes sense to bring it here instead of keeping it to the end. What should be the role of the top management to motivate employees? You touched upon that by, I like this idea of identifying high potentials and letting them experiment over a safety net. So what if they fail? Because there's always a safety net. That would be a great way to motivate them. So in the concept of total rewards, we talk about environmental rewards. So I think this is something where you give them an environment as a motivator. So would you want to answer this question? What should be the role of the top management to motivate employees in the current scenario? Rajaram's question is very specific to the current scenario as well.
So I think today, to motivate employees and considering the situation that's so uncertain right now, the biggest and the most critical aspect is communication. And I think it's very, very important that CEOs of companies and CXOs of companies connect regularly with their team to ensure that they are connected, because life has changed for all of us. We all lived a very fast-paced environment. And now suddenly the entire atmosphere has changed. There's so much what we're reading in the newspapers, what we're reading in the news that's polluting our mind. And I don't want to labor that. We've had enough of that. But the point remains that I think from a CXO level, it's very, very critical to stay in constant connect with the employee. And this is something that we've done consciously. In the last 30 days. Maintained very, very close contact with each and every employee of the company, including the CEO, calling up some of them and inquiring about them, their health, and so on and so forth. So I think that really talks about a company an organization that cares for its people, not only in normal time, but also cares much more during times that are difficult and that are uncertain right now. And also giving them, a kind of clarity in terms of, how things would look like, once we get back to normal. So we're all hoping that everything moves quickly and, all this shadow is behind us. But, providing them so much of clarity in terms of what does the new normal look for all of us. I think this is something that every CEO should really work on. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we are right now in a very interesting phase. So Rajaram has another question, which is also you kind of led to it. So I think it is appropriate to bring it up here. How is employee engagement, empathy going to be seen by organizations in the situation of business loss and downsizing of manpower? Employee engagement and empathy in this perspective. What do you think it's going to? What do you think the scene is going to look like?
Yeah, so definitely, in situations like this, it is difficult. And, a lot of organizations that all of us are aware of today, we're reading about it, are taking certain tough calls, certain actions. It is difficult, but I think it's important to help people understand the rationale of the decision of why we are doing what we are doing. Yeah. And I think if you're able to provide clarity with terms of, why we're doing what we are doing, people will help understand that, can they take a share of the pain? Yeah. It's difficult for the organization to take the entire share of the pain. So can they take some share of the pain? So I think this is very key in today's time where, organizations are grappling with, how do we become more productive? How do we get back to normal? How do we start producing, or how do we start selling when everything today looks uncertain? Some companies have taken some tough calls in terms of compensation, in terms of people that they need to manage. So these are various things that companies are doing, and I think it's very important for all of us to try and see and communicate this at a routine interval in terms of helping them understand that this is for the long term. We have a short-term problem today, but in the long term, we will be out of this. So I think convincing them on the long-term picture, on the long-term game, I think people will really realize it. It's not the first time. Way back if you recall, we had a downturn when the global crisis happened, and a lot of companies did take tough calls that time. They did take tough decisions. Of course, I'm saying that's no way comparable to what we're witnessing right now. But fact and point is that we did take some tough decisions over there as well. And I think, the rationale needs to be explained and help people understand. I think if people are able to understand, they will appreciate what you're doing, and they will be with you through the tough period.
So that's what. So in short, if you have to build a fabric of trust in your organization, then transparency and communication will have to be woven together to create that fabric of trust. And I think this brings to my mind that one line in that very famous Shahid Kapoor, Kareena Kapoor starrer, Jab We Met, where Shahid actually addresses his stakeholders, the shareholders, and he says, "Apni to band baji hai." I think business leaders have to be as transparent as that and let their people know कि अभी band बजी है. अभी तो फिलहाल तो दुनिया की band बजी है, so it's not very difficult to say that. But I think that's what the key is. It's be as transparent as you can, and that's where the empathy really lies. You don't have to go around beating around the bush and telling people stories, and just be as blunt and transparent as you can. And I think a lot of people will have the maturity to actually come forward with some ideas for cost saving or cost optimization. I'm sure that will happen because a lot of people do have ideas. It's just that we assume that ideas will come only from the top. But I think this is the best way to open up the stage for ideas is to be transparent.
Yeah, I think, and sorry, just to interrupt, Harini, the important thing that you mentioned was being transparent to people during this time. And I think not only being transparent, but be real and transparent with them, show that you care, show that you care for their personal life, show that you care, show interest in their family, do small little things that matter. You don't need to have huge budgets. So very small things can make a big difference in trying times like this, and also I think all these things, if you do, I think it will make a big difference to people to keep their morale high, to ensure that you're an organization that cares, you're an organization that's proactive in times like this, which are difficult. You're taking the right precautions to ensure that, people are safe, people have this is going to be a safe environment for them to work with, because there's so much of psychosis and fear in their mind today. Tomorrow, if you decide to start offices and factories back again, the fear is still not gone out of people's minds. So there will be always the apprehension, is my office safe? Am I traveling safe? Am I eating food that's safe in my office? Or am I drinking water that's safe in my pantry? So if you're an organization that truly cares and values people, I think you will do these really proactive steps to ensure that you're taking the right precaution, you're taking the right safety measures, you are doing your bit to ensure, besides what the MHA guidelines are, to try and do over and above those guidelines to try and see that we are able to maintain distance between people and ensure that people are safe. I think if you're able to reiterate that point, it will help people believe that this is a safe environment to come back to work, and this is a place where I will be productive back again.
It's interesting because right now we are going through a situation where it's very, very difficult or almost next to impossible to say when things will be back to normal, because the size of population that our country, and especially our city where you and I live in, handles this. I cannot imagine feeling really safe if I have to take a public transport. I've even heard people saying that we shouldn't be using Uber, Olas anymore. We should be buying our own vehicles. So the discussions are all over the place. I think when people get back to work, when things slowly start limping to normalcy, definitely there are going to be situations where policies, rules, templates, all those things cannot be applied on every individual. There are going to be people who will say, yes, I agree with you, we need to get back to work, productivity has to start, improve, all of that, but we still feel unsafe. So there are definitely going to be those situations where one will have to balance head and the heart while taking a decision, or while playing the role of HR, being in the HR leadership. So while we think about what are going to be such situations, will it be, if it's okay with you, without quoting any names, without giving any organization or a situation name, can you walk us through an experience which stands topmost in your mind where you really balanced head and heart and you gave a decision? And that's going to be the biggest takeaway from this conversation. on just doing it right or doing it justly. So I want this one to be the biggest takeaway. So this is the highlight of today's conversation. So take us through that. Where did you balance head and heart?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I will, of course, I will, this is something that I look at very, very closely, and I feel that it's very important, and we all believe that as human beings, we all have a heart. And that too, more than often, we have a very emotional one. Yeah. So let me talk to you about my journey so far and numerous encounters and that I've had with people, and when I've had difficulties to balance the two. Case in point is, when you need to take a decision to shift a job, and that's when I've seen that, this is something that, at times I've experienced it myself, and I'm sure many would have experienced it themselves, is, what really happens when you're shifting up, when you want to make a role change or you want to make a job change. And, there are a lot of emotions going through your mind at that point in time. Are you taking a professional decision? Are you using your head, or are you making an emotional decision at that point in time? Did something really trigger you to do this, or are you doing it out of your own willingness to, go ahead in your life and in your career? Therefore, so these are things that run through many people's mind when they are, because it's you're living a particular lifestyle for a particular period of time, and then you suddenly decide you want to shift gears somewhere else. Yeah.
You're on mute. You're mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So the point is, you're living a particular life with a particular rhythm, and then you decide you want to shift your gears to something else. And then when you're trying to shift your gear, that's the time when you're either plagued by emotion, which is triggering you to make that shift, or you're plagued by determination, or your head that tells you, this is the kind of career shift that you need to make, which will make a difference to you, to your career. Yeah. So these are the things that really go in many people's mind, and I've also faced it myself. And I would like to tell you that, more than often, many of us use our heart. Yeah. I'm of the firm belief, however, that it's very, very important for all of us to sometimes, most of the time, use your mind, use your head in that, as you will be in a better situation to really take a far more informed and better decision in terms of what you need to do going forward. Yeah. So these are things that that I think it's very important. And I think the biggest case example is when someone's making a shift in their job, and they are going to so many emotions that really plague their mind in what's the right move to do, and what's really triggering what we need to do at that time.
Wonderful. So here, this is where it brings me to the point which I have also been practicing when it comes to take a decision, how you balance your head and heart is when you think or take decisions based on your heart predominantly, you tend to go into the situation and you're taking a view, an inside view of a situation, and you may not be able to see beyond those horizons. You may not be able to look at those possibilities. But when you start balancing head and heart, and you start using your head a little more than just only your heart, you actually come out of the situation and you take an outside in view, and it opens a lot of possibilities. And sometimes initially it just comes across as somebody who is only practical and not at all empathetic. But I think that's only momentary, because the moment you're able to articulate what the outcome will be, message gets across. That you are able to balance both. So thanks a lot, and that was a wonderful sharing of that particular question. I was always very curious to see how many people are like-minded in that, and once again, yeah. So one question again, wearing an HR hat now. So when you have to conceptualize and drive a new initiative straight from the concept. Like for example, today in another group, we were wondering what could be different engagement activities we can do for the top management team during these times. Not typically things which are in training and stuff like that, because there's they wouldn't really be engaged. But how do you keep them engaged? What could be an HR leader's perspective? So if you have to drive an initiative right from conceptualizing, like this one, just as an example, how does one evaluate whether this is just a tick in the box or whether it's the right thing to do, whether it's a fair thing to do? How does one bring the ethical viewpoint into this engaging people or driving an initiative right from concept stage? So wear an HR hat for this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think one of the key things when you're introducing or when you're driving any initiative that at an organization wide is to really, and I'll talk about certain principles here before we get into the nitty-gritties. One is, I think, to focus on the big picture, and I think any initiative that you look at, it's very easy to get sometimes sidetracked, on insignificant issues, and these are something that will play that will kind of distract one. The second, I think, is very important to make to ensure that the initiative is relevant for your organization, because it's very easy to have there are several initiatives that companies take. But is it relevant for you? Is it relevant for your population? Is it relevant for the life cycle of your organization? So I think the second most important aspect is relevance, whether it's relevant for the organization. The third in my mind is, does it meet the organization value system? Does it, every organization comes with a predetermined set of values or a culture that gets built and over a period of time. So I think meeting the organization value system is very, very key, to every initiative that you bring, because that is going to drive the organization culture over a longitudinal period of time. Yeah. The third one is, if you've done something in the past, are you learning from those mistakes? If you made a mistake, do you want to pick up some of those and do you want to try and make some corrections? And it's good. Everyone makes mistakes. It's good. We correct. We move forward and we go ahead. Yeah. The other point that I had in mind is, keep the right perspective. And also have a very, very positive approach on what initiative you want to do. And the last one is focus on what you know, okay, and what you don't. So if you don't know something, just leave that aside. But focus on what you can do and move forward on that. Because if you focus on something that you don't know too well, you'll end up procrastinating over a period of time. So if you're able to put these few things down and try and drive initiatives going forward, I think that will make all initiatives really that you do to be successful over a period of time. And I think I would want to just press on just one, which is the most important one. Once you make a decision, don't look back, make it work. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, because lot many times, Harini, I've seen it happens so often that, we feel that, okay, it's likely to fail. It's likely not to happen the way we envisaged it. Oh my God, okay, let me look at something else, or let me derail this somewhere in between. But I think you must persevere, you must try and take this forward and not look back and try and make it happen. I've always driven this and that's where you really will see success when you look at it over a period of time back.
Absolutely. Anything which is very well thought of, anything where the research on the outcomes are well thought of, properly documented and done thoroughly, I think none of those things need to be really revoked. And that has been my experience too, even in tough times. One doesn't need to go back on those decisions provided they are done well. Now, in the meantime, while we are still talking, I don't know if Suzanne is back here. If she's in the waiting room, can somebody who's playing host get her in? Because she's trying to log out and log in.
Yeah. I just saw that as well, yeah.
But I can see her chatting, so anyways. So whoever has a host rights, please let her in if she's in the waiting room.
I have added actually. Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So now we are just past 8 p.m. So I will go with a few quick questions, a little bit in a rapid fire format, and then we will take up a few more questions that are here. And so, okay, so Colin, get ready for the rapid fire. So,
do I get a hamper for this? You can send me a virtual one.
Yes, no. I will send you movie tickets for 2 of you, which you have to redeem in the next 1 week. You'll be seated at A1 and Z22, maintaining social distance. Right? Okay. Okay. So, if not HR, what would have been your profession?
Wow. I must tell you, I have a very, very fond love to explore places, explore new geographies, traveling. I just love that, you know. I'll be really happy packing my bag, wearing my shoes, and travel to, you know, book my tickets and travel to a new country to really learn about cultures, places, food, emotions. This has been my passion, and I think I will keep this passion till, you know, till I can travel to the maximum. But I love traveling. I think that's my biggest passion. I love photography. I archive all my photographs, and I just love to. And this has been the best time of. I actually had time to actually look through all the places I've been, and I'm just waiting for this thing to end and get packing again.
Were you my twin brother lost somewhere? Okay. Okay. So the next question is, for whatever you are, the Barack Obama that you are, who or what would you give maximum credit to for making you the man that you are?
Oh, wow. Okay. I think beyond doubt, it starts with my family because they've really brought me up from the beginning. It's the managers I've worked with in the past that have influenced me and made me who I am today. It's my team who I work with and the different teams who I work with in different assignments who have shaped me to behave the way I am today. And I think, you know, a combination of all three have really contributed to, and I would give them the maximum credit really, because, you know, these are the population that I've spent the maximum time of my life with each other, with them.
Okay, so one last question here. I was actually wanting to ask you what's the first thing that you would do after the lockdown is lifted. You said you already answered that, and that's pretty much something that I'm also going to do. Just
Absolutely.
backpack and start traveling. I mean, I just did a lot of travel, came back to base, and then the lockdown happened. So I'm just waiting to pack my bags and travel. But one last question. This
To
is
get back again.
my favorite one. What's your secret? What's that secret that gives you this perfect balance of emotions, head and heart? What is it that makes you Barack Obama?
So, you know, I must narrate a small incident, and I'm conscious of time, but I'll keep it short and crisp. I must narrate a small incident, you know, of what's really been my secret of, and I was talking to a bunch of my colleagues, you know, sometime back. I had a discussion with them on, you know, how do we define, how does one really define who needs to be recognized? And this is really what I felt, you know, when we were talking about it. We were talking about our reward recognition scheme. And, you know, I said that, you know, how do we really recognize people? So, you know, this is what I really felt. I felt when someone today does an outstanding job and when the entire team applauds them, okay, applauds that deserving person who gets recognized and rewarded, that is true recognition. That is true fairness. Because what really happens in this, every team member today would believe that as a manager, one has been fair in this selection, and it's not your perception and belief, but a collective agreement from each one of you. So that, in a nutshell, talks about how fairness would be there.
Fantastic. So this was an amazing conversation, and all those secrets that I wanted to know about what makes you what you are. I think all of us have learned, and there have been great takeaways here. Some of the most important ones, which really stood out, is look at how you look at developing people as an investment and not as an expenditure. That's something which I have also been advocating strongly. Every time you look at something as an investment, then you can very easily build a very strong business case and show a return on investment that is likely to happen, because of which it's very likely that you're able to take those initiatives ahead. That was a wonderful takeaway. And that's what typically the business leaders would look at, value of the investment and return on investment. And caring for people really goes beyond compliance. It goes beyond doing stuff to make people happy at the workplace. It goes beyond, I mean, there's always this debate between fun at work or making work fun. But I think it is beyond all of that, because I'm thinking of what must be happening to all those health workers right now. How do they remain engaged in such a situation? Obviously, they can't have fun at work. It's not fun at all with the kind of cases that are rising in numbers. But they still remain engaged there. They're doing their job to the best of their abilities, and that's amazing. So obviously, that's where caring and welfare goes beyond all of these, which are looking very much on the surface. So it was wonderful having this chat with you, Colin. But let's look at any more questions. I think more than questions, there are lots of thoughts that are there. People are sharing on the chat screen.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And I think Rajiv is saying, okay, Rajiv has a question. He says, I've been hearing that companies have started cutting salaries of some or all employees. One common feeling is, why can't they share when they had profits? How fair is such an action? Now, this is a very direct question. So, Colin, what's your take on this? When it's bad news, it's always the people who have to share. When it's good news, when there are profits, they don't. There could be a perception, but what's your take on this?
Yeah. So I think, and we spoke briefly about it a little earlier. A number of organizations are taking a number of moves to ensure that they are able to contain the situation. I think all of us will agree.